Are we on? We're good? We're rolling? First time, day one. Gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to Life, Business and Bodybuilding, where we talk about everything to do with life's incredible journeys, the ups and downs, the triumphs and adversities. We'll talk business, we'll talk entrepreneurial ventures with our biggest wins and our toughest losses and how we've learned from them and the discipline it takes to achieve success in a number of different areas of life. We'll also talk about bodybuilding experiences with a number of different athletes and how they've overcome certain adversities in there as well. I am your host, Brian Underwood. Today, the first guest, me. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about life, how I started, where I currently am now and what I'm currently doing. I'll touch on my entrepreneurial journey, one of my main businesses and side businesses, what I'm doing now, and an amazing bodybuilding experience that I had last year. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let me introduce to you me. Over the course of this show, I will bring on a number of different guests from a number of different walks in life, and we'll talk about a lot of different experiences. But today, first episode, I wanted to talk a little bit about myself, where I'd come from, and a few things that I can share. And hopefully you walk away with a little bit of extra wisdom and some motivation you can take along into your life. So, who am I? Like I said before, my name's Ryan. I'm 39 years old, turning the ripe old age of 40 in July this year. I'm a father of 3 beautiful kids. I've got a 5-year-old boy, a 4-year-old girl, and a 2-year-old girl. They are my world. They are my reason for living and existing. They are my why, which we could touch base on another time. My entrepreneurial journey, I have a side business called Bear Bros Co., which I will touch base on. And with the bodybuilding side of things, I am an amateur bodybuilder. Like to think I'm an amateur bodybuilder. Somewhat of had some success within the industry. I've competed 30 different times. There's been a number of wins and a number of losses. I've traveled the country, competing in different states and been up with the best. And I'm looking forward to sharing some of that with you as well. How did Bear Bros start and what is Bear Bros? I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my side business. So essentially, in a nutshell, I teach girls how to make candles whilst being naked in an apron. Yes, you heard that right. It was pretty much Chris Bateman, who is my ex-brother-in-law and still one of my all-time greatest friends. He had an idea of starting a candle business and wanted me involved in that. So we had always wanted to do some things together. And we thought, let's sell candles, but also let's, for the marketing, because obviously candles are very, very, flooded marketplace. Let's be naked in an apron as the marketing. I was like, okay, that's a bit weird, but sure, I'm up for it. And we decided to call ourselves Nude Dudes at the time. So we were kind of like nude dudes in an apron making candles. Makes sense, right? Sure. And then it wasn't until a friend's mother, very conservative 50-year-old woman, asked us to teach her and her friends how to make candles at a friend's birthday party. And we're like, that's kind of weird, but sure. So we went to Bunnings, we bought 6 different burners. We bought all the gas and bought all the product stuff and everything like that. And then we set everything up. And it wasn't until halfway through the workshop, I looked at Chris and I've got this amazing photo from the behind of us. Now, we were wearing aprons at the time, but we will have clothes on underneath, obviously. And I've got this amazing photo of me, arms crossed, looking over at Chris. And I just said, I've got a really messed up idea. And he sort of looks down at me because Chris is 6'5", and he's like, what's that? And I said, hens parties. And he's like, oh, and actually be naked in the apron. I said, yes. Next minute, we had advertised on Instagram that we were offering hens party services and teaching girls how to make candles. Next minute, we had a girl from Mornington who inquired, and we gave her a price, and we essentially made $1,000 for a 2-hour workshop. Had no idea what we were doing. So we rocked up with, I think at the time, 20 different burners. All these girls were drunk as we had no idea what we're doing. Everyone's pouring their own oils and spilling wax everywhere, and there's fire, and we're like, what the fuck have we got ourselves into? One girl tried to pour wax on her arm. I was like, no, the wax is 80 degrees. Please don't do that. You're going to burn yourself. So I've dove over the table and burnt my arm in the process. I'm like, what have we got ourselves into here? But nobody died. It was great. The very next day, we got insurance just in case. Turned out to be a successful, little venture. So we ended up kind of advertising a little bit more, and the rest is history. We just started to sort of build these hens parties up, and we were still selling product at the time. But as the hens parties started to take over and word had got around that we were doing this, we were getting a number of different bookings, sometimes 3 or 4 in a day. And we were going from Mornington to Ocean Grove to Bendigo to Ballarat, pretty much all over the state. In my little i30 Corolla at the time, I don't know how we fit it all in. And we're pretty much traveling around and, offering these workshops to people. And then it wasn't until a couple of years in, we just had decided to stop doing the actual candle sales because the hens parties just kind of took over. So this is the thing where sometimes when you start a business and you start like a little venture or whatever, the thing you start and think that it's going to take off might not necessarily be the idea. It might be like a little side thing that goes along with that, a little branch off, so to speak, that goes, fuck, that's the thing now that we're doing. And then you just put everything into that. So the candles, for example, we were doing like $35 for a candle. And by the time you sort of make it and sell it and everything, it was like, $20 profit per candle or $18 per candle, depending on the scent. All of a sudden, when you do hens parties and you've got a group of 20 or 30 people and you're charging per head, and it's just obviously your service and you're traveling around, the margins were a lot greater in that sense. So we just put everything into that. So the actual candle stuff was our first idea. And we had an idea of wanting to stock in Peter Alexander, for example, and, have our candles all over the world, and, make a killing from that and like be known as these new dudes that do that. But then obviously as time progressed, it was very, very hard to get in touch with Peter Alexander. Didn't exactly have the network for that. And then we ended up, really pushing into hens parties. So that's where it is now. A couple of years ago, I bought Chris out. Chris actually lives in Norway at the moment, and he's married with beautiful Norwegian girl, Tonja, and a couple of little babies. So extremely happy for him, and he's living the dream life over in snowy Norway. So Bear Bros is solely mine now. I've got a number of people that have worked with me doing the parties over the time, which has been great. Another really cool thing we do with Bear Bros is we donate 10% of our profits to charity and to different charities. And we've rotated these charities over the course of the time that we've been running the business. And we'll sort of stay with the charity anywhere from 3 to 9 months. It's a little bit longer now, maybe 6 to 12 months, depending who we're working with. And to this date, I've been able to donate close to $40,000 out of our own pocket to a number of different charities over the time. So one of the main ones we just sort of finished with was A Friend in Me. So they create these workshops for young kids that wouldn't necessarily get invited to parties out of being bullied or have autism or some sort of condition. So obviously the money that I donate to that goes to providing wheelchairs and ramps and things like that into these parties. And Spider-Man coming to entertain, which is essentially just me dressed up as Spider-Man. Kidding, I don't do that. The suit doesn't fit because I'm too large. Now, one of the other ones we just finished with was Project Rocket, which is a really, really cool charity created by these two girls in the mid-20s. I think they're up in Sydney. So what they essentially do is they create these workshops for young teenagers into early adulthood, educating them on cyberbullying, which is obviously a huge thing these days. We can't go anywhere without our phone and getting like abused or picked on or insulted in some way or another. Now, even something what I do, I'm quite, I guess you could say, forward on social media. I post a lot of stuff on socials, and obviously with Bear Bros, I've got my ass out in an apron and I'm posting a lot of stuff. I do get a lot of hate, to be honest with you. I get a lot of criticism about the certain things I do, and I get some insults here and there. I get, I guess you could say, questions and like accusations coming through that I might be doing things that I'm not necessarily doing or meant to do or whatever. I have no idea what I do at these parties. So I think it's just this whole thing about, one of my favorite quotes of all time is just be curious, not judgmental. You've got no idea who I am. So don't judge, ask questions. Hey, what's the business like? And then I'd tell you, as opposed to just, coming across with some kind of hate. Now, at the end of the day, I'm a 39-year-old dude with a half-decent rig and 3 beautiful children, and I run a couple of businesses. I could give a flying fuck what you think about me, but it's the vulnerable 15, 16, 17-year-old girl or boy that's afraid to make a post out of being called whatever you could imagine. So this is why I want to kind of create some sort of awareness around this, where it's like someone insulting you on social media is their issue. It's their problem. It's not your problem. So if you want to send you a message, get out there and do it. Don't give a fuck. Side note, amazing book to read, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. I've read it so many times. It is an amazing book. Get it. But that's another podcast. Love Bear Bros Co. Love what I do. It's an amazing little side hustle. I'm looking forward to growing it and hopefully taking over Victoria really soon and branching out into the country. So that's a little something that, I'll touch base on in other little podcasts. But that's Bear Bros Co. That's my little side venture. And I've started a number of other little businesses in my time. I've made a lot of money. I've lost a lot of money. I've started businesses. I've failed businesses. I just love being innovative. I love being creative. I love talking to other business owners about their entrepreneurial journey. And even just the other day, I was talking to Johnny Starr about Team Never Home, and I absolutely love his concept of everything he's doing. Speaking to one of my mates, Chris Park, with his insurance business, like so many different walks of life, and just hearing what they have to say and the struggles and things. Liam, one of my all-time greatest mates, has an amazing gym that he's been working on and he's doing really, really well, but he's also suffered a number of losses, and I'll get him on as soon as well. I'm sure he'll love it. Now, bodybuilding. I want to touch base on an amazing experience that I had last year, and I set myself a really incredible goal for this. Now, again, I've been competing since I was 19, which is 2005. Half of you probably weren't alive back then because I'm like 84 years old now, still going strong. Now, I had already done 24 shows up to this point. I've won shows, I've lost shows. Not that I was losing motivation to compete, but I wanted something. I needed something to kind of push and something to sort of keep me motivated. So Scotty Goebel, who is my prep coach, I usually hook up with him into my preps. I had come to him with an idea, and I walked into his office. This would have been about 17, 18 weeks out. And I said, Scotty, I've got an idea. And he goes, okay, what's up? And I said, I want to do all the shows for season A. And he goes, okay, explain. I said, I want to do 6 shows in 5 weeks in 5 different states. I don't think anyone's ever done it before. I feel like I need a challenge. I feel like this is something I could really set my mind to. And I was going through some personal shit at the time. And I needed the distraction, and I needed to really like sink my teeth into and sink my brain into, so to speak. So when I told him, I said 6 shows, 5 weeks, 5 different states, 6 different posing routines as well. He looked at me, didn't say anything, and just goes, okay, great. When do we start? And I'm like, yesterday. We started yesterday. So he was the only person I told originally, and then I shared it with my best friend Jeremy and also my best friend Jace. And I sort of said, this is what I was going to do. And Jeremy said to me, he goes, you're fucking crazy, but I love you, and I'm here for you, whatever you need. And Jace was pretty much the same thing. He goes, yeah, cool, why not? So I had the support from that. And then obviously as time went along, word kind of got out, and we'd started to like tell a few people, and Tony started to promote it a bit more, and it gained some legs. And that was good because there was no backing out for me now. There was no way that I was going to not do these shows because I'd talked it up so much. And I'm like, I'm going to do this. So it was an incredible experience. And the first show was Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Adelaide and Perth in the same weekend, and then finishing nationals. So 6 shows, 5 weeks, 5 different states. The whole thing cost me about $7,000 or $8,000. It was a lot more than what I'd budgeted in the first place. But by the time you're doing like tan and travel and Airbnbs and food and drugs and all this sort of thing, like it just adds up. So I will not be doing that this year. I'll be sticking to the 2 shows. But as far as like the Sydney show, the very first show, I had already ran into a crazy hiccup straight off the bat. So I was doing classic at the time, and my weight cap for classic was 98.4 kilos for my height and weight. And I'd got to the weigh-in, and I was weighing like 97.2. Pants on, but like shoes off. And the, what do you call them? Authority you could say, of the show, who was running the Sydney show, said, no, for your height and weight, you need to be 94 or 94.8. I said, no, it's 98.6. It's like, no, you need to be 94. And I was like, no. So this is my height and this is the weight cap. It goes on the one just above it. And they were adamant that it's like, no, it's the one underneath. So I got Scotty over and I said, can you like read this? Like, I'm right. Yeah, it's got to be 98.6. And they were like, no, it's changed. It needs to be this. And I was like, well, why didn't I know about that? So I was 97.2 kilos at the weigh-in of the Sydney show and I needed to be 94.8. So I needed to lose like 3 kilos in an hour and a half. And I'm like, how the fuck am I going to lose 3 kilos in that? I said to Scotty, what do I do? And he goes, okay, go sit out in the sun, get naked, sweat. I know you've just got your tan, but try and drop a bit there. He goes, let's try and find some caffeine tablets. Do you need to poo? And I said, well, I haven't yet, so let's just see if I can. I was trying to piss out water. I remember chatting to this guy while I was on the couch or something, and I was weighing in and like coming back, and I had about 1 kilo to go. And then we were halfway through a conversation, and I was like, wait. And he goes, what? I go, I need to do a shit. And he's like, okay. So I ran, went to the toilet, came back, weighed. I was like still like 300 grams over with about 30 minutes to go. I managed to like just sit there, didn't do anything, no meals, hadn't eaten at all at this point, went to the toilet again and weighed in exactly 94.6 or 94.8 kilos. And I'm like, looked at the authority and I was like, happy now? And they go, yeah, cool. Okay, you weighed in. Literally about 25 seconds after that, I think his name's Ben, the head judge of Sydney. He comes in and he goes, oh, are you Ryan Underwood? I said, yeah, mate. And he goes, don't worry, man. We got it wrong. You're allowed to be 97.8. And I'm like, wow, I wish you told me that 90 minutes ago. So I then started my carb up process. I went to Scotty and I said, dude, I'm going to go have 1 kilo of steak and all these potatoes and chips and everything. He goes, yeah, go for it. So I ended up doing that. I actually looked really good for the Sydney show. I was really, really peeled. I was a little bit flat, but I was really, really diced. I ended up coming third in that show, which was really cool. And then after that, we had a little chat with Scotty and even the judges and stuff, and we realized that my physique was not quite as classic anymore. It was more down the route of bodybuilding. So I've got that very dense, hard, mature muscle look, that grainy vascularity, and they just don't overly like that in classic at the moment. So what I decided to do for the remaining 5 shows was I'd already paid for my classic entry, which was a few $100s or something at the time. So I was going to stay in classic, but I added bodybuilding essentially to that. So even though it was 6 shows, 5 weeks, 5 different states, I was essentially on stage in 11 different categories or 11 different times, 6 in classic and 5 in bodybuilders. So it was very, very hectic schedule on my body. But again, I was up for the challenge. I wanted to prove to myself I could do it and almost set a record because no one had achieved that in the IFBB amateur ranks from my knowledge. So we had done the Sydney show. Next was Melbourne. We'd come home. We'd go through the whole depleting phase again and constantly like checking in with Scotty to see how things were. And then we did the Melbourne show and everything was smooth. Everything was great. I think we got 13 classic and 13 bodybuilding. So at this point, I was just collecting bronze medals, which was fantastic. The next show after that was Brisbane. My body had started to kind of fatigue by then. I felt I was big in Brisbane, but I just started to lose a bit of condition. But I got 13 classic and 13 bodybuilding again. So again, we're up to like 5 different bronze now. Scotty and I decided when we came back that I'd started to lose the condition. So we didn't do any carb loading stuff. We didn't do any fat loading. We decided to really deplete down and try to come into Adelaide a little bit lighter and essentially really, really peeled. And that worked. I suffered into Adelaide. I flew in and Jeremy and Cynthia came pick me up and which I'm really, really grateful for and get the support there. And I was starting to fatigue then. So to see my best friend and give him plenty of hugs and cuddles and him look after me and train and go through some posing really lifted my spirits, which a lot of the time, you know, side note, energy creates energy, right? If you give energy back to something or if you give energy to something and it gives it back straight to you. So for Jeremy, obviously, like I was very, very fatigued at this point with the amount of travel and cancelled flights and the fatigue on my body and the financial stress and obviously going through my own little personal things at the time. So to be in front of Jez, Like, that dude helped me beyond what you can imagine. So I'm always going to be grateful for him. And we're super close, which is really, really cool. So, and support each other on daily. I love you, Jez. But yeah, and he really sort of provided some energy and some wisdom, and really got inside my head and spoke to me about a few things that he knew I would tap into my psyche, so to speak, and came out the other side really good. So Adelaide was actually a really fun show. I came third again in Classic, and first in open bodybuilding, which was amazing. So again, I'm just collecting medals at this point, which was awesome. Now, this is where it got really difficult, because the Adelaide show was on the Saturday and the Perth show was on the Sunday. So I'd essentially finished the Adelaide show at, I think it would have been about 3 o'clock. And my flight to Perth was 4:50. And I think they had a little bit of a time difference too. So by the time I got in Perth, it was like 7:30 p.m. I had Ubered from the airport. It was like an hour to my apartment. No idea why. By the time I got there, I literally kind of passed out. I went and took myself out for some steak and sweet potato or something, which was incredible. Wasn't feeling great. I was very exhausted. My body was kind of cramping. And then I went to bed, and I remember waking up and something was wrong. Something was very, very wrong with my body. I actually couldn't move. I had a huge headache. I tried to lift my arm and I tried to lift my legs and try to move, but I just couldn't move. I didn't know what was going on. I couldn't even reach my phone. Every time I'd move, my body would cramp. And there was a point where I sat up and everything seized up. So obviously I was incredibly fatigued from not only doing the 4 shows, but the back-to-back show from the Saturday to the Sunday. I don't recommend it. And obviously all the flights and everything. So I could barely move. So I'm thinking, do I call Scotty here? Do I call Triple O? Because I had no idea where I was at this point or what to do. And I kept kind of like, because I was cramping, I kept going in and out of consciousness almost. It's almost like I'd pass out and then I'd come up. I ended up ringing Carly, my ex-wife, and she's a nurse too. And I'm like, something's going on. I don't know what it is. And she said, just try get some electrolytes in and some salt and try and get some water. So I crawled myself to the kitchen and ended up getting that. I ended up FaceTiming the kids. And again, same thing. I started to feel better when I saw the kids. I was really, really missing them at the time. And selfishly being away from them a lot, Carly and I are usually 50-50 with the kids, and she was essentially a single co-parent at this time. And I was missing the kids. I was very emotional. I was crying a lot. And then when I saw the kids, I had just started to move again. And it was interesting. So just goes to show, again, sometimes like things can be physical, but like when your brain starts ticking over in other little aspects of it, other little energies and second winds and whatnot, and the universe will provide whatever it needs to provide to you. So I was able to then, like I said, crawl to the kitchen, get some electrolytes, and manage to somehow get in an Uber and go to the show. And I was backstage at the show, and Josh and Scotty came up to me, and they clearly knew something was wrong. And they're like, dude, you good? And I'm just like, no, I'm not good. I don't want to do this anymore. I cried backstage, and Scotty and Josh almost looked at each other, and I think Josh was almost like, let me take this. So Josh kind of got down on one knee. No, he didn't propose. He got down on one knee and he just sort of looked at me. He goes, hey, look at me. And I kind of like looked up at him like this, just wide-eyed. And he goes, you've got one more week. And he goes, you get through this show, you get to go see the kids, and you get nationals, and that's it. Record's yours. 6 shows, you've almost done it. And he goes, I just need you to suck it up and do one more performance. And he goes, just between you and me, you're a chance for a cheeky overall today. And again, literally with those words, not that it's just like, hey, you're going to win, like spark up sort of thing, but regardless of everything that happened, my condition was really good. I was really, really peeled, flat, but really, really peeled. And he kind of gave me a hug, gave me some rice cakes with some jam and some Nutella, and he said, eat, have a rest, you're on stage soon. So again, I did classic, I got 13 classic, and then I did bodybuilding. I won open bodybuilding, and then miraculously won an overall title. It was my very first overall title in the IFBB, which was really, really cool. So that was arguably the greatest win of my amateur career, to hear Tony call out my name, and he had nicknamed the traveling showman at this point, which was really, really cool. So I'd done Perth, and then I was like, it's so funny because 12 hours earlier, I was on the floor, not moving, crying, wanting to quit, wanting to go home. All of a sudden I was this overall Perth champion, and I had energy coming out my ass. I was like happy. I was excited. ready to go again. Like, when's the next show? Here we go. So it's just funny how, like, again, that energy shift can change. So very grateful for Scotty and Josh backstage helping me out through that time. By the time I got home, again, I was pretty exhausted. I got home like, real late Sunday night, like midnight. Went to work Monday morning at 6 a.m. and had 10 clients back to back. That's the thing. Like, you don't stop. I still had businesses that I had to run and work that I had to do and kids that I had to look after. So kids that I get to look after, I should say. So it never stops. So there was no taking days off. I still had to earn the money to pay for this whole thing. So then it came into nationals. To be honest, in that last week, I kind of cruised through. I did snack on some of the kids' tiny teddies. I'd started to lose a little bit of motivation, I think, as I knew the end was coming. In nationals, I just did bodybuilding. I ended up not doing classic because I was more successful in the bodybuilding side of things. In the national contest, I came fourth in a really good lineup in the under 100s. I was happy with that, but clearly my condition had started to fade over that time. I think it's just the amount of stress that was going on the body. Obviously, it took a toll. So very happy that I was able to get through it. And then when it finished, it was just, again, it was crying backstage. And I remember giving Geordie and Charlie a hug backstage. And I was just like really emotional, but also like over the moon, excited that it was done. There was a feeling of huge accomplishment. And I think like everything just kind of like came over me. I was incredibly emotional and just really, really proud of myself that I was able to get through the 6 shows, the 5 weeks, the 6 separate routines and achieve this result that I'd set, 16, 17, 18 weeks earlier when I had that chat with Scotty. But it was funny because after the shows had finished, the following week, I was like, what do I do now? Where's my next show? It was funny how I was just like ready for the next one. I was like, where do I get my tan? Where's the next show? And I was really lost for about a month. Now, I've never been one to suffer like post-comp blues or post-comp depression, this sort of stuff. No disrespect to those that had, absolutely not. But I've always just looked forward to the next show. But obviously after doing these ones, and I think it was such a big emotional roller coaster through the whole thing that it finished. And then I'm like, what the fuck do I do now? I have nothing. And of course I had stuff, but it was nothing to look forward to. Like bodybuilding gave me purpose and the competitions gave me purpose. I was constantly doing my steps or constantly dieting or constantly looking at meals or training or posing or training clients. And all of a sudden it was done. I'm like, what do I do now? So I had to try and find something else, whether that's healthy or not. I think not just men, but men and women in general thrive on having a purpose. And these bodybuilding shows gave me purpose. Whereas when it finished, all of a sudden I had no purpose. What do I do now? So I was struggling with the thought of, I want to celebrate what I'd just done because this is an amazing thing that I'd accomplished, but also looking for the next thing. Like, what's this next thing that I'm going to try and tackle? So I really suffered for a month or two after trying to find out what that was. And then once I'd settled in and I'd put some body fat on, I'd started to kind of set some goals again. So where I'm at now, a much better place personally. If I'm being really honest with you, I haven't been this happy in a really long time, which I think is really, really good to say and really, really good to say out loud, especially in front of an audience. I had been through some things and not afraid to admit that. My kids are beautiful and healthy. All my relationships and my friendships are really, really good. Business is going great. I'm doing face-to-face PT. I'm doing some online coaching. Bear Bros is good. I've got another cheeky little side hustle that I'm looking to launch hopefully a month or two after my show. So stay tuned for that. Only a couple of you know about that. This podcast, I'm super excited to get some different guests on here and talk about a number of different things and move forward. I've got some really excited video content and photo shoots with some little posing routines and stuff coming up, which I won't tell too much about, but super excited about the network I'm doing with that. Some really cool things with Johnny Starr coming up with Team Never Home. So there's a lot of stuff going on, but I'm also putting myself out there for these opportunities. So I think that's an important thing to say yes more. Don't say no to things when you don't know what it can lead to. How good's the movie Yes Man with Jim Carrey? There's a huge, huge message behind that movie. If you haven't watched it, go watch it, where he has to say yes to everything and then it leads into so many different things. So I think a lot of us close ourselves off to so many opportunities out of fear of what it is and fear of change. We all get scared of change, but you don't realize that you grow on the other side of fear. It's a Will Smith story where it's like, I'm not a huge believer in God but I am a huge believer in the universe and spiritual energy. And I think like the universe placed all the better things in life on the other side of fear. So I think you need to feel fear, do that shit anyway, and on the other side, an opportunity comes up. I'd been wanting to do this podcast for a while, but I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know who to ask how to do it, but I just reached out. I was like, what's the worst that can happen? Someone calls me an idiot and say, nah, man, you can't do that. But it's like, look where we are now. We're doing the first episode, and hopefully you guys share this, and it pushes out and inspires people to do some shit as well. So I'm super excited about this. I'm excited about the next little future. I'm going to buy a dog soon. That'll be awesome. Anyway, there's lots of stuff going on. I'm looking forward to providing a lot of content through here to you guys on everything to do with life, business, and bodybuilding and all the different adventures. And the different guests that I will get on obviously have their own stories to do with life, business, and bodybuilding. So it's not limited to the audience. I'm not trying to hit a specific niche. I'm just trying to touch people's heart, touch people's life, be really real and authentic with how I present myself. I'm not hiding anything. What you see here is everything that you get. Any success that I have in my life, I want to share with it. Any win or any loss that I have, I want to be vulnerable and open and talk about that stuff, so that hopefully I can inspire people moving forward, and especially young men, inspire young men moving forward to tackle certain things, be really open and confident about certain things. Don't hide away. Like I said, it all goes back to like one of the charities I work with, Bear Bros, with Project Rocket. It's just social media, it destroys people. It really does. And it's like, I want to be one of those people that inspires people moving forward. I want people to look at my content and go, man, like I want to hang out with this guy. And if not, swipe across. There's a reason that there's an unfollow button. Swipe across. If you don't want to watch anything that anyone's doing, who cares? Just mute them or mute the story or swipe across. Anyway, that will do it for my first episode. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me today. If you did get any value out of this, like, subscribe, do all that sort of thing. I'll work on my outro a little bit better. This is the first time I'm doing this. But yeah, I'm going to chuck this up on YouTube and Spotify, and we'll see how we go. But until then, peace out. Keep smiling. See you soon.